Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. My name is Juraci Paixão Kroning. I'm a software engineer, and I'm here with you today on Telemetry Drops. And for the next half an hour, I have some guests here that we are going to discuss about AI observability. So, what is AI observability? What is important when I'm doing AI stuff to observe? And I have three guests, three very special guests here today. But a little bit about this project. So Telemetry Drops is a project that started just a few weeks ago. And the idea here is based on what we had for a few years already in Portuguese, Dose de Telemetria. And the idea is we get together every couple of weeks and we talk about open telemetry or observability, monitoring, and telemetry in general. Every couple of weeks, we have this live in English, so part of Telemetry Drops, and every couple of weeks, we have it in Portuguese. So we change. Every week is one language. For people who speak Portuguese, I think they're in adventures there, so they can follow both weeks. But the idea here is really that we focus on open telemetry, and we bring you deep technical content about open telemetry. So we prefer new content, we prefer fresh content, we prefer things that go very deeply on a technical level, and we bring it in a small drop for you. So only half an hour, perhaps just a little bit more, perhaps a little bit less than half an hour, but around a half an hour, and only once a week. So you don't need more than that. And the idea is, over time, you should have enough knowledge about open telemetry to lead the open telemetry efforts at your company. And for a few weeks as well, we've been doing the telemetrydrops.com website. On the telemetrydrops.com, we have an upcoming course being offered already. So we have an early bird, and the one in Portuguese is available this week already. And you can book it. You can enter the wait list also for the specialization. Now, the idea here for today is we are going to discuss about AI observability. And again, with me today, I have three very special guests. I'm going to call them here one by one. And the first one is Cyril. Hey, Cyril, how are you doing?
Hey, Jesse, I'm good, and you?
Very good, very good. For those who don't know you, who are you?
So I'm Cyril Tovena. I work at Grafana Lab. I'm a principal engineer there, and right now I'm focusing on building AI agents within Grafana Lab. So I think maybe you've heard of Grafana Assistant, which is the assistant within Grafana that helps you, build queries or dashboard. And before that, I was working on the Loki project, so the distributed log aggregation system. And yeah, it's been 6 years now, so it's quite fun. And I'm located in south of France.
Nice, cool, yeah. And for those who don't know, we work together at Grafana, not on the same team, but I had the pleasure to meet Cyril a couple of times during my tenure at Grafana.
Yes.
Always a pleasure to talk to you, Cyril. With us here today as well, Chris.
Hey, nice to meet you all. So I'm Chris Muhi. I'm Principal Product Manager at Dynatrace, and I'm working on our AI observability solution. So observing AIs, agents, large language models, RAG pipelines, you name it. And I'm based in Berlin. Nice to have you all.
Cool. And to get the scene here complete, we have Max as well. Hey, Max, how are you doing?
Hi, nice to meet all of you. Doing great. I'm also in Berlin, and I'm a co-founder and CTO at Langfuse, and we basically build LLM observability. That is all what we do. Awesome to be here and happy to talk about this.
Nice. Thank you all for accepting the invitation. So a few weeks ago, I had this. Somebody told me, "Oh, I know nothing about AI observability. It would be nice to have a Telemetry Drops episode about AI observability." And I don't know anything about that either. I mean, but I know people who know, so I can invite them. So that's when we pinged you all, and I'm very happy that you all accepted this invitation to have a conversation. Cyril, I promise you, it is not a Berlin versus or Germany versus France kind of situation. So Max is part of Langfuse. Langfuse hosted a couple of hotel nights. So for the people who are here in Berlin, we have an hotel night running every couple of months. And Cyril, you are more than invited to come here for the next hotel night. It's very cool, and we would be very happy to have you. Sorry for putting you in the hot spot here right now. But yeah, so I guess let's get started with the question. So if you have any questions, so people who are watching here right now, if you have questions about AI observability, write it down here, and I can bring this question to our guests here today. But the first,
not in Portuguese, by the way.
no, well, I mean, they can ask in Portuguese. I can translate. I can translate to German, perhaps as well. So
Nice.
you can answer them, Cyril. But yeah, I guess the first question is mine. I know nothing about AI observability, so let me ask you all. Like, when I think about AI observability, what should I be thinking about? Like, what is really AI observability? So perhaps Max, you go first. What is AI observability?
Yes, it's basically for engineering teams who integrate LLMs into their products. Say like an HR tool to like automate writing emails to applicants, something like this. So for these use cases, engineers use LLMs by now. And now, originally, engineers were mostly concerned about like latencies or HTTP status codes, exceptions, stuff like this. But now LLMs return strings and very long strings. And LLM observability is basically there to help engineers navigate these very, very long strings and understand what's in there and somehow try to understand the noise within the data to understand quality in the end. So that's basically one of the most important metrics our users or in general engineers should be concerned about, like quality, but also speed and cost. These sort of things are very important usually.
Got it. Okay, so LLM observability is one thing. Chris, what is it? What is AI observability for you?
I think Max really well summarized it. Just a little bit to expand on it. What we see in the market and from our customers as well. It's as Max mentioned, this is something that's running in an existing stack as a microservice that either served through a UI or through an API. And it's really hard to control the quality of these models, and it's let it be large language models or how the industry is shifting into agentic modes as well. So how do agents communicate between themselves? What are the tools that they're using, the APIs that they're calling? Getting that level of visibility into there is really challenging. But still, a lot of the use cases are generative AI use cases. So what type of metrics you should be caring about related to cost, what type of guardrails you should be setting up against those models, because you want to get notified if the output of these models are toxic, or you don't want your users, for example, in an airline application, to chat about generating Python code. So you want to have your system to block specific topics or only allow specific topics to communicate with that. So you want to get that visibility, early alerting. Because what we see from engineering teams, usually observability previously or monitoring was a little bit of a second thought, or you had the first incident and you, okay, let's adapt based on the RCA, etc. But here, due to the cost implication, the quality problems of these models, like observability is the first thought. So people wanna immediately set up the monitoring, set up tracing as well. So you can see each step or in each layer what happened. For example, somebody thumbsing down some of your responses. You want to trace back what happened with your front-end application, the backend. Maybe the backend couldn't parse the large sum of text that was passed to the model. You want to see what went into the LLM itself if you're using out-of-the-box models. What was the output essentially? What happened with the vector database if you're using like classic RAG pipeline? So you want to kind of like validate each step on the way, get alerted, get all of these services monitored, and get those insights into a platform.
I have so many questions already to both of you. But I think one of the things that you mentioned really applies to not only AI or LLM observability or this area. It's really about observability. So what I've experienced, and something that actually recorded this morning a video for that's going to circulate next week, is observability is typically a one step in the evolution of the software development lifecycle. So people start without observability, so they just start scratching some code. It happens, it works, then I deploy it, and then depending on your experience, like junior developers, but typically, so when I see myself as a junior developer like 20 years ago, I didn't think about observability at all, or monitoring, or how am I understanding this application in production. I would just add my lines of code in there, like logging, and then deploy to production and see what happens. And I think the same happens today to a lot of companies. And whenever they have this need for observability is when they discover OpenTelemetry, is when they discover the observability tooling. And I think that's one thing that you mentioned, like companies start without, or previously they started without. And now, once they get more mature, they think about observability during the development of their applications. If that's what if I understood correctly what you implied, Chris.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I still do see like smaller startups. For example, I'm talking in Berlin in this really small group. It's still a lot of logging, right? Like in the IDA, you try something locally, you deploy it, and you see if it works or not. But the moment you scale up and expose it to the users, like you're blind. This is because all these systems are non-deterministic. It's not that like you have an exact path that you can go through, like that can change. Or when there's a model version change, when there was a bump from GPT-5, like you might have to modify your system prompt, fine-tune some of those requests, or the way you were trimming some of the requests, or we're using prompt caching. So there's like a continuous adoption curve you need to go through, because all these systems continuously change, like week by week, month by month.
Again, I have so many questions. I'm noting down them here. Cyril, when you are doing the tools that you are building right now at Grafana, so what are the things that you think about adding to your code to observe the behavior of your applications, your AI applications? So what is important to you?
It's a good question. We actually started without much observability, so I guess that's quite fun for a company that is doing observability. So it was basically like a hackathon at the beginning. And so I think probably the first signal that was the most impactful is tracing, being able to have like traces related to the LLM calls. That was definitely the most impactful. Logging, not so much on our side, because we don't necessarily like logs everything. That seems to be a lot, so we don't do that. But we do store like past conversation into our relational database, and usually we use that to kind of have a sense of what's going on the prompt side or the context side. But yeah, pretty much tracing and then custom. So that's how we ended up. And I do think that we touched about a bit on what's AI observability. At least for me as an IC on building those kind of thing. It is definitely related to the LLM call themselves, for sure, as the first step, or what you touch as an engineer, and being able to be aware about latency and also token, because they usually relate quite quickly to cost and latency. And I think tracing does cover that very well. Like you can have in your traces at least those two numbers, like input and output token, to be fair. But I do understand that at some point you do want to end up, figure it out. Why do you have so much output token, and why is it? You do need to be able to see at the context, and see what's going on for that specific conversation.
Since most of the model providers are like enriching the response, right? Like guardrail data, token data, temperature data, right? That gives you some visibility. But on the larger scale, sometimes you want to see you had change in your vector database, you had change in your system prompt, or there was a new model version. So per conversation, how much token on average you are consuming, because the model might have been degraded. Or I don't know how many of you are actually using Cloud Code, but there are like period of time when the output is just not great. That can happen with your system because of the load. So like an average conversation might blow up. It's not just the single LLM call, right? Like your users continuously asking the question. They're not getting the output they need. So you want to monitor that at scale, and obviously the cost implication at a larger scale when you, for example, deploy a chat application or a support application, like as a financial institute or as an airline, that can be massive, especially if you don't have fine-tuned guardrails or prompt injection protection, all of these set up. So you want to get that level of visibility. But again, Cyril, as you mentioned, like once you scale and you'll gain some confidence on production.
This is so interesting because I see both you and Max have mentioned things that mixed operational and business aspects of observability. And when I'm talking about observability in the classic scenario, let's call it this way, people are typically more interested in the operational aspect. Like the business is typically not part of of what is instrumented there. I do think that once product managers and sorry, Chris, but once product managers understand OpenTelemetry on a very deep level, then they start adding their observability requirements for business metrics, like for the business operations into the products. And then we are going very close to the potential of observability. Like, so then we are beyond operational. But you are there already. You mentioned that, and Max mentioned, I think, the cost of each call. Like, cost for me is business, right? It's not operational. And one thing that you mentioned, Chris, that I think was nice. I mean, I saw a reference to that in the past, and I think it's so cool. Like, if a user is sending a lot of messages, then it might imply that something's wrong, and perhaps measuring like the mood of the user is also a good indicator. Like, the user is getting annoyed, the user is getting angry. Like, alert! My user is angry. Like 10 users are angry right now, so let's start a new alert and let's wake up an engineer on call. Like, is that a thing? Like, is that what people are measuring nowadays, or is it like what we wish to be in the future? I think perhaps Max, let's see.
Yes. Yeah, it's a perfect point, because in the end, like as we pointed out, right, it's long strings and you have no idea what's in there. So anything that helps you get a metric on this helps. And what we see a lot is people, for example, if you generate an email, you want to, like, people measure the diff of the email that was proposed by an LLM and that the one that was actually sent out. And if there's a large difference in this, then you have like a implicit feedback from the user, like this was not good enough or likely not good enough. So like these sort of things is something we see a lot people doing these days. And then there's also like usually there's like thumbs up, thumbs down, at least in the chat UI, which is like very direct feedback. But people try to really catch these implicit feedback points.
Nice. I don't know if it fits here, and I don't know if I shouldn't be mentioning that right now, but I got into one of those situations where I got an email and I wasn't happy with that email. Like, it was an email from an AI SDR kind of company, and the email said, "Oh, I see that you speak German, and how are and I hear that Germans like Bratwurst at Weihnachtsmarkt." Like at the Christmas markets, and I was, what is going on here? Like, by the way, we sell this AI SDR tool, and I was, okay, that's certainly not, it's not working. Like, this is cringe.
Yeah, but you tap on a good point, because that's essentially how we need to build like safe AI applications and make sure that they're like safeguards set up, and make sure they're like guardrails set up as well, that there's no harm, like explicitly, like no toxic response, no racist response, in that case, like explicitly, not like all Germanic people like Bratwurst. That's not the case, right? Like, you should not write that, and that's just a mild one. So you want to catch those early on, and reputation for your business. That's essentially what matters, because most of these applications, like as Max mentioned, what I see on my end, a lot of it is really chat interfacey, chat application, conversational. So the thumbs up, thumbs down, like that's why it's a good indicator. But that's not the only indicator, right? But you need to get alert, and then you need to make an action on that. You might need to roll back a version. You might need to shut down the model when some toxic responses increases, essentially. So yeah. That's crucial, even in pre-training, right? Like when you're doing training yourself or in pre-production, make sure that you have a suite of regression tests that you're running with a frequency. So whatever change you make in the system, that makes sure before you go to production, you catch it early on, So we see some customers are in the market, like the training on the production data, masked as well, put it in the regression suite, or taking those bad examples. But it's classic software development practices that we need to still keep to make sure there's quality output.
Got it. Let me change the subject just a little bit. I'm a huge fan of vertical observability, like building vertical solutions on top of the primitives of observability. I first got in touch with that type of concept with a talk from, I think, Netflix, when they talked about Edgar. If you don't know Edgar, look it up. Edgar, Netflix, great topic. I think that was one of the talks that really stayed with me for long, and I could see new things, right? And I see AI observability or LLM observability as one of those verticals built on top of the primitives of observability. The primitives here really being traces, logs, and metrics. And I guess my question is to Cyril. Cyril, do you see those primitives as still the solid building blocks for the new generation of LLMs or observability solutions, like vertical? Perhaps LLM is not vertical. I don't know. That's my interpretation, at least. But do you see that the basic building blocks, they're still the solid ones for the future, or do you envision new building blocks necessary for the new discipline?
Yeah, I do envision more building blocks for sure. I think tracing gets you quite far already in terms of like knowing about what's up. Yeah, it's definitely not enough. I don't think sending everything into the logs really does. I mean, I guess as a backend, it could probably work if you have a front end that shows it in a way that makes sense. But yeah, logs is generally a bit more difficult to consume for a conversation, especially if there is multiple conversations on the same server. But no, I think there will be definitively, and I guess we have talked about this also. Like, it's not just about latency, but also the performance of your LLM, and those are more like a platform than just observability signals, unfortunately. So you kind of need a way to run, your agent so that you can test regression, for instance. And I don't think there is anything that has been built in the open source, or even like, I think usually it's like a new product that exists out there, like Langfuse, for instance, for Max, or Dynatrace. I don't know if you guys Dynatrace have a evaluation, but yeah, I think that part evaluation is definitely on the. And this is new.
Yes, go ahead.
Go Max. No, go Max.
Yeah, like in general, I agree with the sentiment on OTel being like a really, really strong building block, because especially tracing is like so flexible. Like you can put any attribute on a span essentially. And now when you add more business metric, like if you want to have more business information on your spans in general, like giving people the freedom, like engineers the freedom to basically put anything onto a span is like super helpful. Like it's basically a really good escape hatch to have metadata with a map. You can put anything there. So this is like really helpful. I mean, obviously the backend side of things will look a bit different if you run like evals on each trace, for example. This is nothing that like traditional observability ever did, really. At least I don't know about it. So like what you do with the data in hindsight is very, very different, I would say. Yes.
And I guess one difficulty there, I guess there are two difficulties in the open source side of things, is that first, it's hard to run on normal laptops, the things that you need to do proper like models without calling the model providers up there. It's very hard to run, right? So I'm lucky to have an old Dell XPS laptop with an NVIDIA card, because apparently the new ones don't, right? So it's harder to run on newer laptops than on older, apparently. So it's hard for people to just experiment and tinker with things like the way that people used to do in the 90s and the 2000s, where they could just get a box, assemble a computer on their own with spare parts and just install Linux, and then on top of Linux just build your own program. I think it's harder on that aspect. It is harder today, but it's easier given there's so many SaaS tools, like there's so many things that you can use nowadays. I think it makes it easier as well. You kind of lose control on a lot of things. Like you don't really know how the sausage is made. But I think it's not impossible, right?
Yeah, I mean, running a local model just for testing, I don't think it's a good idea anyway.
Yeah.
It's fun. I mean, do it for the fun of it, and like you said, learning for sure. Like
Exactly. Yes. I think that's what brought me into open source in the first place. That I could just look at the HTML code for the things that I cared, and I could just change the colors and see the results, like on my machine, with no permission from anyone. Nowadays, you need an API key to whatever providers to even get you a something back, right? So of course you can run things locally, Hugging Face and things like that, and I think it's great. But it does take a while. Like the Docker images, they're huge. Of course, they're huge. I mean, it's like billions of I don't know. The content is like the model itself is huge. Right?
Yeah, plus it's running slow on it. Yeah, definitely. And the problem also is that if you start building from a local model, first you're not going to get good results compared to the other result, and then when you have to go to production, you're going to understand that you're making a mistake because you're never going to be able to get the price of hosting even your smaller model as compared to the frontier model that exists out there.
Yeah. I have one more question to y'all. I think we kind of touched on OTel, but I'd like to go deeper there. How does OTel fit into this whole AI LLM or AI observability area? So Max kind of mentioned that tracing is so flexible that it can be used as the correct me if I'm wrong, but as the main building block for that new kind of observability. But and I was talking in backstage with Chris before, and like Gen AI, the Gen AI SIG for some like semantic conventions for Gen AI is also one of the things that is in the mix. But how does OTel fit into the big picture? Like beyond those two things, what are the things that we can do or we should be doing today with OTel to achieve AI observability? And what are the things that we're lacking? What is the future there? Perhaps Chris.
Yeah, so I do feel like the whole industry is really heavy on supporting open telemetry, even the big model providers. Like just think about Cloud Code, which is essentially just like a regular local agent exposing its own monitoring to open telemetry. And OpenAI, Microsoft, Google, like all the product teams, they are monitoring teams. They are like heavily either contributing back to open telemetry or helping with the semantic convention committee. So that's really nice to see. And I think it's really progressing far ahead. Like agent support and agent spans immediately branched out. So there was immediately an answer how we should do the tracing. And most of the open source SDKs that are helping with auto instrumentation, right? Because let's call it out. Like that's one thing that we have the span attributes, agent span attributes, etc. and metrics. Like you might need to instrument that manually yourself. But a lot of open source SDKs like Langfuse, Traceloop, Arise, Phoenix, like all of them open source support auto instrumentation for these models that helps you to switch between them, right? So if you are using OpenAI, you get the same metrics that you would get from Vertex with Google Gemini. So I think that's the beauty, and I really like where the community is heading. Anything to add, Max?
Yeah, like first of all, +1. Fully agree with what you just said. Maybe to the part where there are things missing. Like for example, multimodality is something that's unsolved right now in OTel. I'm not sure whether there's efforts on this side. I should check it again. But we built our custom code into our SDKs and backend, etc., to support multimodality. Like this is nothing native to OTel, but something that will also grow a lot over time as also models will be more and more multimodal.
Yep.
Got it. Cyril?
Yeah, I think metrics is also a good one that we haven't talked about. At least for my part, I'm using metrics for like just knowing about the average token over time that we're using, the cost, and some like high-level metrics that can be useful to figure it out, problems that you may have with a provider, for instance. So yeah, I do think there's also this one. So tracing and metrics, and yeah, what's missing? I think anything that is related to making relationship between those LLM calls will definitely be helpful, and then having the full conversation.
Is that similar to the? So there was a proposal for RUM, a RUM signal, or real user monitoring signal for OpenTelemetry some years ago, and one of the questions we had, including myself, was how is it different from tracing? And one of the comments there was, in RUM, there is this concept of sessions, and a user might click on a button, and that triggers a transaction, but then they click another button, and that's another transaction. So and they're all part of a session. As far as I remember, the outcome of that discussion was, well, you can have a session as the main trace, and then each child transaction is a linked trace. So the root span is linked through a span link to the main one. That makes things a little harder. But is that kind of the same concept, or do you see that we do need to rethink the idea of having the notion of sessions in OpenTelemetry? Cyril, perhaps.
Yeah, I was about to say yes, for sure. I think so. That'll be helpful. I think you can already have whatever you want as a metadata to link. It just doesn't really solve the like having a nice view of the whole conversation, and for each of those steps, how much money and token you spent.
Right. Yes. Okay. Yeah, I can see that there might be attributes that belong to the session and not to the trace that originated it.
Yeah, I think the problem is that those conversation can go up to 1 million, tokens, which are a lot of characters, because I think you need to multiply by 4 approximately. So that's a lot of data in a trace. I don't think that's going to go well. Yeah.
Anyone wants to add anything to this specific topic, or I have another question, and perhaps that will be the final one. But if you have anything to add, Max, Chris.
No, I think sessions are super important, and solving it by metadata is right now the way to go. But maybe having a first level primitive for this would be even simpler at some point. But it's not a showstopper right now.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, it's custom attributes, and some of the auto instrumentation SDKs are proprietary, are solving that already. But yeah, the standardization is absolutely missing.
One thing, so changing the question a little bit, and it's just so interesting. I could go on and on for the whole afternoon. So the final question for you all is this. When I'm talking about observability with folks in the industry, I have the impression that we have two audiences. One is the software engineers that are instrumenting their applications. Nowadays, perhaps not as often as it was in the past, but then we have people that are responsible for running those systems, like typically operational folks. I think they got the name SREs, different from the name that was defined by the book. But there are the people who operate the systems and people who instrument the systems. And they are very different in behavior for traditional observability. When you all mentioned mixing the operational and the business aspects of AI observability, I get the impression that the audience is a single one. Multiple audiences as well.
On my side, I absolutely see multiple audience. So there's a absolute desire even from platform engineers to help to provide golden path to the teams. Essentially, how do they fit into the existing stack, right? Because they're going to fit into an existing hyperscaler running in K8s, right? So it's going to be an extra node, an extra service. So how can they help with auto instrumentation, for example? What signals they need to connect to, alerting, right? All the classic stuff. And from SRE as well, like they need that level of visibility, or whoever is maintaining the resources, because what we see from the industry from the last few years, everybody's moving all these models into native hyperscalers or to OpenAI or Anthropic directly. So they stop training locally models. They're using out-of-the-box models, and they need to have cost control and performance control. So SRE and central teams, they need that level of visibility. Who do we notify? Who do we call up in the middle of the night, right? Who do we need to talk with that we see a spike, we see a misbehavior, a misconfiguration? Then the development teams obviously need, and leadership as well, related to the business impact. So I do see, like, just like classic observability, all parties are heavily interested. Via Dynatrace, we get inquiries from all teams. So AI native engineers, development teams, and SRE, DevOps, and platform engineers.
Got it. Max?
Yeah, fully agree again. But I would, so I would say there's maybe even more people interested than before, like for traditional observability. Like a product manager wants to know, like, how many tokens did we spend on a specific user or for a specific feature? And then they may be the driving factor to get into observability in the first place. Maybe they're even earlier than engineers realizing that they need it. So so like many people are heavily interested in this.
Interesting. That's so interesting, because the same audience, when looking at traditional observability, would likely not care about the size of the spans that they have or how many spans they have, right? But they also pay per span, or they pay per size of traces. So that's an interesting observation. Cyril?
I forgot to say that I was talking about open source, and I didn't realize Langfuse was open source. So sorry for that, man.
No worries. All good.
So that's a good call out. I just realized I was saying, there's not a lot of projects. I guess that's one.
Yes. Thank you for mentioning.
Related to your question, I think there's a lot of people that are interested into the signal. Definitely, I'm seeing more like executives being interested into feedback. Like how is the LLM perform, and definitely if there is prompt engineering as a squad, if that exists, they will probably also be very interested into all of that. Although I would say I think it's a bad idea if you start doing that. I think it's a bit like ops. Whoever writes the app should probably also write the prompt.
Yeah, folks, thank you very, very much. I think that was so insightful. I'm living with more questions than I came, and I think that's a good sign. That means that I understand the topic now a little bit more, and now I think I'm ready to ask the right questions, or at least some of the right questions. Thank you very much. And I hope to see you all next time, perhaps during hotel night, during our next hotel night, or perhaps we can have an hotel south of France sometime, Cyril. But yeah, thank you very much.
It's going to be small. It's not
But I'll leave you with your final thoughts and final words. Perhaps, Cyril, you can go first.
I should go first. Final thought. Yeah, I mean, observe your LLMs. Yeah, that would be my final thoughts. No, it was nice being here, looking forward to catch up again, Jurassic.
Cool, thank you, Max.
Yeah, also thank you so much for the invite. This was very fun, and I think we are very early in like how LLMs will evolve over time. So I'm also extremely excited to see how like engineering like workflows will look like in the future, and this will also have an impact on observability. So I think there's still a lot to be developed in the future, and I'm excited about this.
Yeah, agree. Just on top of that, of LLMs, like agent building tools, no code, low code agent building tools where you don't have open telemetry. I think that's going to be like an upcoming challenge for the coming years. How do you observe and monitor that? So I'm super excited. Thank you all. It was great being here.
Thank you. And from my side, I think the final, and continuing on the thought that Chris had, I think no matter what happens in the future, I think it is an exciting time to be in this area. Like observability is so exciting, and being close to the LLM observability or AI observability, and I think this is so cool. Like there are so many things in such a nascent area, so many new problems to solve, and I think one thing that I talk to people when we mention that, observability in itself is only at the beginning, is when I see the code that is being generated by code, which is often it works, but the telemetry that it generates is so bad. The information that it generates in terms of how we should observe this code that I'm generating, it is bad. And I think for us working in this area, it is our duty to make sure that it's good, right? That the things that are coming out of the tools that we write or the things that we do, they have quality. And I think this is the most important, not specifically about how to make the code that is coming out of Cloud Code better. I mean, that's Anthropic's job, but our job is then to ensure that whatever is coming out is observable. We can look into that, we can observe that, we can ensure, we can understand how it's performing at runtime. Folks, thank you very much again. See you next time. And for those of us joining us live here, see you in a couple of weeks' time for another Telemetry Drops live stream. See you all. Thank you.
Thank you.